Good morning, YouTube. I just got done watching a recent video post by the Jarl DM talking about magic is powerful and how he doesn't like I think he said Vancian magic system, the the system where you cast a few spells, you go pew pew pew. Okay, now I need a nap. Pew pew pew. I think I need another nap. Yeah, I don't believe it's the best system. I don't think it's a grand way of doing things, but it is what it is, and we have to sort of accept it for what it is, unless we want to rewrite half of the game's mechanics. But if rewriting half of the game's mechanics is something that you might want to do, here's a few ideas. A faith and favor system for clerics. I have a video on that as well, speaking about instead of spell slots, that there's a favor mechanic, and you win favor with your deities, and then you spend that favor to manifest your deity's powers in the forms of the spells you know. Each spell of a certain level requiring a certain amount of favor, and each level of cleric able to bank a certain amount of favor. Um, in that mechanic, the idea was to have, let's say, for instance, one favor point or two favor points or whatever per level, or let's say for a cleric, your spellcasting stat multiplied by your level is the amount of favor points you get for morning prayer. So if you pray every morning, you get that back. That's your, I take a nap, pew, 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 I take a nap sort of thing. But that's only regained after a long rest, full rest up. And then during gameplay, depending on your deeds and how your deeds work with the dogma of the deity in which you're following, that you can win favor points back, and you can charge your favor and then use them to cast more and more spells, like helping the innocent, taking on jobs where there is no monetary gain, or there might have been a monetary gain, but you don't go about doing it, or making donations to the church, promoting the gospel of your deity, and so on and so forth. As far as like arcane magic for wizards and sorcerers, sorcerers need to have like blood magic. Like that's awesome. Maybe in accordance to the RLDM's idea, instead of it just costing straight health, because I think it costing straight health is that's too harsh for magic, because the way the mechanics work is that even though a spell caster can start throwing out some crazy stuff, at these levels, at these higher levels, yeah, a fighter can swing a sword really, really well. But in fifth edition, for instance, the fighter can attack up to like six times a round, or something ridiculous like that. They get three or four standard attacks in one attack action. If they're using just a say a great sword, they have a 20 strength. That's a 2d6 plus 5. In and of itself, 2d6 plus 5 doesn't sound like it's a terrible amount. We're not even going to use magic items, but 2d6 plus 5 doesn't sound like a terrible amount. But you multiply that by 4, that's 8d6 plus 20. That's a spell. That's a pretty heavy hitting spell. That's, what is that? That's like a fireball plus 20 damage on top of it. And that's spammable every single round. Every single round. It's crazy. Let the fighter do his what is it? His action surge, and that 8d6 plus 20 could potentially become a 16d6 plus 40. Like damage gets ridiculous. Now there's certain things like spellcasters could do it at range, but spellcasters don't get as much health. They don't automatically get the same sort of armor proficiencies that a fighter gets and whatnot. It's all balancing issues. But screw the balancing issues. Let's make something awesome. Magic. The way magic is handled in other systems. Let's look at. Now, mutants and masterminds works on like a power system. You develop your power and you can spam your power all day, every day. But items, equipment, gadgets, they're all built in the same way that the powers are built. So you would kind of have to reskin weapons, but make them unable to be taken from you. I think it would have sneezed. Pardon me, people. Excuse me about that. But yeah, mutants and masterminds, the gadgets and the weaponry, everything is built from the same sort of pool that characters get at specific levels to balance the powers with the gadgets. Like a sword or a possessed sword or a sword made of flame or fire or a bolt of flame or fire or a ninja star. They're all balanced in that manner. So, but Savage Worlds, Savage Worlds has several variations on magic and certain ways to change the theme of magic. The default way Savage Worlds works is that you have a PowerPoint system, and these PowerPoints you regenerate one PowerPoint every hour. No rest necessary, you just get it back. There's edges within Savage Worlds which are similar to feats that will increase your PowerPoint gain. Um, and spells are very similar in power in Savage Worlds as well. So, you can have that kind of points, like a mana system in Dungeons and Dragons, where every character has a specific amount of mana, and they regenerate it passively, no rest required. They regenerate it constantly, and then maybe throw mana potions into the game, where instead of always looking for health potions, I need health potions. The fighter's always looking for health potions because he needs to stay up in battle. He's always taking damage, yada yada yada. The mage is doing the same thing, only he's looking for blue potions instead of red, right? Um, the way they do magic in Iron Kingdoms is also pretty cool too. Iron Kingdoms has two specific variations currently, and they're coming out with the Hordes version soon, if not already. It's already out. Can't remember. Not important. But the way Iron Kingdoms does magic is two ways. They have a will caster and a focus user. Right. The focus user has a stat, and focus is generated from the stat. Now, every round, you get your focus back. You get that power back every single round. There's no rest. There's no sleeping. There's no passive recovery over an extended period of time. It's instant. The very next round, you have your pool to work with. Now, each spell costs different focus points, different amounts 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. To modify the spell costs points as well. To make it more accurate costs an additional point. To make it do more damage costs an additional point. Now the spells are pretty big and badass in Iron Kingdoms. They're nowhere near as ridiculous as you know Dungeons and Dragons. You're not making it rain fire from the sky. You're not completely stopping time. You're not resurrecting people from the dead. You just don't do that in Iron Kingdoms. But the methodology may apply here, where you could have a very, very limited pool of points to spend that regenerates on a round by round basis. Um, and you just get it back. However, the focus users, they can do a few other things, class specific things, but they get a smaller pool to work with. They only have their pool. A will user in Iron Kingdoms, they don't have that pool. Their same stat is The same stat that a will user generates its power from as a focus user generates the power. I'm going to just reset that because I said that so wrong. The same stat that a focus user generates its focus points from, the will user uses as a maximum amount of stress. They generate fatigue. They cast a spell, casting a spell tires them out. Every time a will user casts a spell, it gives them points in fatigue. The same amount of points it would have cost a focus user to cast that spell is the amount of points the will user gains in fatigue. If that fatigue is more than the stat, the magic stat, then he has to roll to see if his magic goes dead for that round. And it takes an entire round of not casting spells for him to. No, every round he loses fatigue equal to his magic stat. So it's a thin balance. It's not as straightforward as a focus user, but it's very interesting and fun. You know, that you can start spamming spells in one round, and you can do more than one spell in Iron Kingdoms as well. So you can double up, triple up at times. That's just ideas. Another way to do something like blood magic would be to maybe use the concentration DC in 5th edition and use that as a casting DC. Except key it towards not the constitution, but the spellcasting stat. Like a wizard uses intelligence. So the difficulty class to cast a spell could be 10 plus the level of the spell, or 15 plus the level of the spell. And to cast a spell, you would roll your casting check, and the way you roll your casting check would be something like 8 or 10 plus your spellcasting stat plus your proficiency bonus. So that as you level up in that class, as you level up in the game, you become more and more proficient at casting these more and more powerful spells. But there's always a chance your magic can fizzle and die. And then have certain classes like the sorcerer and especially the warlock, since the warlock can spam the spells faster, since they regenerate spells at a short rest as opposed to a long rest. Maybe their spell excuse me. Maybe their spells can be cast with a lower DC, or maybe they have a higher bonus to casting spells. Again, that's all things that needs to be worked out, but those are just a few ideas for variations on spell casting and make spell casting a little bit more meaningful. Also, if you fail the DC, the casting DC to cast a spell, that magic is, you don't have the skill to form the energy of the world and rearrange the molecules of reality, that you screw up. And maybe you should take damage, or something needs to take damage. The world, yourself, maybe you start to bleed because you can't hold on to the required power that is needed to cast a spell. You take damage equal to the level of the spell, right? Or twice the level of the spell, or the level of the spell times 10. I mean, who knows? It's all good. I'm Nelson. This has been Infinite Roleplay. I apologize for the sneezing and sniffling. I am sick. Until next time, peace out.